very early, so thanks for coming to chill and hang out. Yeah, I'm Aiden Thomas. I write young adults, mostly fantasy. I will eventually be writing I wrote a contemporary, and there will be a sci-fi. I write about queer kids, Latinx kids, high fantasy, paranormal fantasy. If you like boys fall in love with cute boy ghosts, I've got books for you. Yeah. The end.
Perfect, thank you. And then for Ngozi, I'll have you talk a bit about herself.
Hey everybody, good morning. It is early. You're here at 9:30 on a Sunday. This is church. Talking about graphic novels and gay things. It says for panels between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m., keep the language PG-13. It is 9:30.
We get 30 minutes to swear.
We have 30 minutes to swear. Evelyn said no. And I'm like, no, it's the rules. Anyway, I haven't said anything about myself. My name is Ngozi Ukazu. I make a comic called Check Please. Check Please was a webcomic that was traditionally published. It's about a gay little boy from Georgia who plays hockey in college and falls in love. It's a happy queer love story. And yes, I am so excited to talk to you guys about writing process and getting your creative juices going. Yahoo!
All right, and Mad?
Hi, everyone. My name is Mad Rupert. Mad is short for Madeline. I'm not angry. And I got my start in online comics, web comics. I authored 2 original web comics, Sakana and Robert. The second one is for adults, so don't look it up if you're under 18. I also have done a lot of licensed comics for Cartoon Network shows like not Cartoon Network shows, like Cartoon Network, Adventure Time, regular show, Steven Universe, Bee and Puppy Cat, Bravest Warriors, all of those. I've done hundreds of pages for those. And most recently, Ngozi and I have worked on a graphic novel together called Bunt, and Ngozi wrote it, and I drew it. It's about art school students trying to play softball.
Heck yeah, thank you so much. All right, so let's get into it. So what is writer's block? The definition is it is a psychological inhibition preventing a writer from proceeding with a piece. So I will ask all 3 of you, what happens physically when writer's block hits you?
Well, let's actually talk about writer's block as a thing that doesn't exist. Writer's block does exist, but I think that what is actually happening when you're experiencing writer's block is when you're experiencing a lack of flow. People love the idea of thinking that when you're writing something or creating a long form story that you sit down and it just pours out of you and all the characters are doing these brilliant turns of phrases and like discovering things and the mystery just unravels. But there's actually a lot of work that happens before you even get to your first draft. So when you're actually experiencing writer's block, I think what you're experiencing is doubt or a lack of total, You're experiencing a lack of ease that you might associate with what writing actually looks like. But I think writing is a very bumpy process.
Here, I'll skip to the next one then, because that was the one is what immediately comes to mind when you recognize it as writer's block, so like more mentally. So, and then we'll come back to physical.
Yeah, let's just keep talking about it. Yeah.
Please do.
So am I?
Yeah, do whatever.
Okay, I was gonna say, for me, definitely writer's block. It feels like I think it feels like anxiety to me. It's definitely most common when I have overburdened myself and I'm trying to think of too many things at the same time, whether that's different stories at the same time or whether it's, I have to write this, but then I also have to market it and I also have to make social media posts about it, and you just become paralyzed and you're like, I'm just going to lay down on the couch and put on a Let's Play and fall asleep instead for hours.
Are we the same person? Because that's exactly what I do.
It's like, I give up. So for me, definitely it feels like a blockade almost that just prevents me really from moving forward. And it takes a lot of introspection to really start to unwind it again, which can take a long time or a short time, depending on how long you've ignored the signs. Ooh. So.
Yeah, I think mine is kind of the same answer, especially feeling the anxiety of it and kind of getting tripped up. And I don't know if you guys experience this too, but I tell writers when they want advice, I'm gonna just write the first draft and it's supposed to be bad. But I don't take that advice myself. I'm like, this sentence needs to be perfectly written right now. And since it's taking me 2 hours, I'm gonna curl up on the couch and put on a Let's Play and take a nap. So that is a big part of it for me, is that I'm just like, I want it to be this way and it doesn't feel that way, thus I am failing, and thus it's time for a nap. Yeah.
Yeah, usually when I'm talking to new writers, the greatest thing that you can do for yourself as a new writer is identify how you feel throughout a project. To like know that anxiety, know that like, oh, I'm doing that thing, the perfectionism thing's happening, and then saying like, okay, I'll take a nap, but after I get up, I'm gonna let myself be kind to myself if you can. But it's hard, it's really hard. Mm-hmm. It's impossible.
Perfect. Yeah, that definitely sounds like it's a lot of mental taxation for all of y'all. And then, so touching back on the physically one, so speaking of that, do any of you experience your body feeling like aches or headaches? Do you catch yourself like physically feeling a reaction?
Yeah, I think definitely I immediately feel tired. Like I get sleepy. It's like my brain overheating, and it's like, you have to take a nap. You have to cool down. I guess it's like the same reaction as like a yawn.
Yeah.
It's just like, no, a full body yawn. And then anxiety might set in, and of course that comes with its own host of physical reactions, but that vary by person. But it's definitely it's like a big clench and then a give up. It's what it feels like for me.
For me, it's like, I get irritated with myself. I don't know if you guys ever experienced that, but just being angry at yourself while you're trying to create is like not the best headspace to be in, as it turns out. That's a big one that I feel. And I get frustrated, and then I'm just grumpy and glaring at my computer.
All right, and then before we go into the steps and process for overcoming writer's block, I would love for each of you to go in depth for when you don't have writer's block. Like, how does your process go? And just so we can get an idea for the audience, like the difference that happens.
Yeah, I don't know. It's such a weird thing where I feel like I never totally feel like a genius, and I never totally feel like, sometimes I feel like an utter failure, so that's
Let's be real here.
The creator struggle, it's true.
I rarely hit the peak of like, oh, everything I'm writing is amazing. More of it is more like, oh, this is making me laugh, I think this is funny.
Yeah.
So when the writing is coming out, I feel like, okay, I can work with this. Mm-hmm. And having hope while you're writing, it's so good. This isn't awful. I could go back and make this better. Yeah, so that's how I feel when I'm not experiencing writer's block. I'm hopeful that this could get better.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I think, just as there is a process for me, for dealing with writer's block, there's also a process that I'm, utilizing when I'm not experiencing it, and that is that whenever I brainstorm about basically anything that I'm going to write, I put in my headphones and I run 4 miles.
What?
Yes.
No.
I have
exercise.
I'm wearing a sweater.
We believe, thank you.
They're under there though. No, but no, I think it also, it's like, well, we'll get into that when we talk about what you do to overcome it. But if I've got new songs that I've just put on my playlist that are like, I'm really rocking to, and I've got this scene that I've got in my head that I'm like, oh, it's cool, they're fighting, it's poetic, it's exciting. And when it all sort of like all pieces together in the movie in my head while I'm running down the street like this, and then I get home and I'm like, I take my shower, I'm like, I've done it, I've figured it out, and then I get back to the...
This reminds me of the classic YouTube AMV videos, but we put our own OCs into
Yes,
it.
yeah, no, that's what's playing through my head for 4 miles. Yeah, so it's really, if that all works out, and it's like I've got the right ideas, the right music, I've physically worn myself out so that I can sit at my desk and not be vibrating, then it all just comes right out.
Nice.
It's perfect.
I feel like when I'm in the flow is when I don't notice that I'm in the flow. Like when I'm doing a good job, it's like I'm not noticing that things are going well until I kind of like lean back from my laptop and it's been 4 hours and I've actually made some progress. So I feel like with me it's just kind of being in a stasis of being like, okay, here we go. And we're just going and you keep going
Yeah.
until you need to sleep.
Yes.
Until you conk out.
Yeah, until you give up.
Until you get to the let's play point of the night.
Perfect. All right. Then let's see. So for Ngozi and Mad, as illustrators, did you implement the art making process to get through writer's block? And if you could explain how you do that. I know I have some pictures for you, so
Okay.
could you go first, Ngozi, if you were done?
How do you use the artistic process to combat writer's block?
Okay, so the question is, how do you use the artistic process to combat
Yeah.
writer's block? I think, well, when it comes to writer's block, it's usually you're running into a roadblock where you don't know something, or you don't feel something's complete. And you can resolve that by exploring the character more, exploring the environment more, asking yourself more about the themes of the story. You can kind of search for a way out that way. And with writing, yeah, you can do that by doing more research, you can interview, you can read what you wrote in the past, you can always discover something there. But with graphic novels, you have the extra added feature of being able to just do visual exploration. And while you're drawing a scene or like resketching a character or, I don't know, putting your character into a meme format, other thoughts pop up.
Hell yeah.
And that visual exploration can kind of unlock some of the roadblocks that you ran into when you're experiencing writer's block.
Yeah, going off of that, it definitely, if you see like an art meme going around where it's like, draw your characters in this funny thing, instantly my mind goes like, which one of the characters which one is Barbie and which one is Ken? And the lineup photos. So that definitely, I wouldn't underestimate the power of memes to excite your brain. But definitely, I think that I think in art first and foremost. I think as a creative, as even the project that we worked on together, I usually prefer to draw rather than write if I have to pick one of them. Of course, I do a lot of my own stuff, but like writing and drawing together. But it's just, I think it's impossible for me to like just start with writing. I have to come up with my cool guy first that I want to write the story about. Like that's paramount, is finding the cool guy. And then like sort of what he looks like, what he's going through, or she, or whoever I happen to come up with. But usually it's a grizzled 35-year-old man. But you know, we all have our things that excite us. But
So I have some pictures of the Mad's
yeah.
process on the slideshow, so you could see a bit of a preview of that. So you
That's
have
cool.
some thumbnails here. and,
yes,
like,
yeah.
links of
So
that.
I very rarely will script, like formally ever. Usually if I'm coming up with dialogue or something like that, I will just thumbnail it and then write the dialogue underneath.
Oh, wow.
Instead of, you know, just because I guess when I am thinking of what the page will look like, I have to have at least a small visual indicator of like the final thing, which will change a lot, obviously, because I can't just submit those thumbnails and be like, this is done.
How often does your dialogue change between thumbnailing and like posting online?
Sometimes, well, I mean, especially for this project that's up on the screen right now, I pencil, letter, and ink all on the same page. None of it is digital. So it is sort of a matter of seeing a lot of the time it will change only when I'm seeing the final expression on the character's face. And I'm like, is this really impactful enough for like how they're feeling, how they're looking? What's that called? Image text interdependence
Oh,
is the term I'm just going to throw at you at 9 o'clock this morning. And that's when you can't separate one from another. There's an image and there's text, and reading each of those separately would give you a different picture than if you put them together. So put it like, what is it like? I'm trying to come up with like an easy example really quick.
that meme of what's that from Housewives going, Beyonce?
Oh my
You know
God,
that
yeah.
meme? Yeah, there's so much actual context happening in there.
I don't know that one.
Well, it's okay, girl.
To clarify, it's not from the Real Housewives. It's
not.
actually New York
It's
who's
New
doing
York,
it.
sorry.
Thank you.
From Flavor of Love. So.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
See,
Very
context. Yeah.
I actually also use illustrations. I can't draw.
That's what I was going to ask you next, is definitely for you both. I want to hear the illustration side, but
Yeah.
if you also take inspo from, like, let's say Pinterest or video game or like
my God, yeah.
any visuals that like really
Yes.
get you for that. Yeah.
I am an inherently very visual person. My books play out as like movies in my head, and my job is to then translate what I'm seeing onto paper. But when it comes to illustrations, my cover artist, Mars Lauterbach, who is incredibly talented, they meet my characters before anyone else, including my publishing team, because I commission them to do character art. And when they do character art, it helps me kind of, in my
Come up
head,
with the cool
assign
guy
quirks and
first,
like
yeah.
personalities. And I very often will change my book to fit an illustration or a cover that Mars has created because it's so inspiring. And even like, I'm thinking about the Sunbearer Trials, where I have 10 demigods who compete. And I did character art for each of them because I made like trading cards that you can buy on my website. And one of them, Marino, was a very side character who like didn't do a lot, but then Mars did character art of them that I like, described, and he was so cute. I like made him, he has more role in the book because I got so attached to him.
More main character energy.
Yeah, the illustrations like totally make an impact on me. And that's like one of the most important things that I do when I'm working on a project, is to start harassing Mars and be like, can you make my OCs for me?
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah, please do.
Like, the illustrations are so inspiring. How do you translate what you're seeing? Like, I feel like sometimes it's difficult to do that, like translate it into words. I mean, you're a professional writer, so that's what you do. But like, how do you take Mars's illustration and like translate that?
I think that that's kind of my favorite part about writing, is describing visuals, much to my editor's suffering. Because I'll be like 50 pages in and I'm still describing my opening scene to you. And she's like, please, Aiden. I'm like, this is all very important. You need to know what those steps look like. It's so natural for me to want to describe things really vividly to someone that it just translates really well when I'm writing a story or a book or whatever. But it's a lot of use of thesaurus.com that helps.
Yeah.
So I have all that language that I want to use. But yeah, Mars impacts my writing so much.
Oh.
It's wild. And media in general. Like a lot of my books, either a character or a dynamic is inspired by a piece of media that I consume.
Yeah.
And anime is big inspiration for me. If you like My Hero Academia, Sunbearer Trials is for you. Love a tournament arc. So yeah, I am always...
So it's a shonen is what you're saying.
Yeah. It's interesting because like I learned how to write by doing fan fiction and online role playing. Like that's how nerdy I am. And so my writing has always come from being inspired by other pieces of media. So it's just kind of like a really natural way for me to get excited about a piece.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely also, it's, when they say good artists steal, they don't mean stealing wholesale. They mean you take that one little nugget that you see inside of a piece of media and you're like, I love this.
Yeah.
You grab that and you squish it together into your pile of nuggets.
That's a
Building
beautiful
your story.
visual. I need you to draw that for next time.
Yeah.
Which is totally right, because using the Sunbearer Trials as an example, I was so interested in the career tributes from the Hunger Games, so that plays a big role in the Sunbearer Trials. I love a tournament arc from My Hero Academia. Percy Jackson, the world of like there being gods and demigods. Like it's stealing those nuggets that really excite you. Yeah,
Making your little nugget man over here.
yeah. Here's my Frankenstein.
Your little Frankenstein baby.
There's a character I'm working on that is 60% Fraser Crane.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We're in Seattle.
We're in Seattle. You guys are too young to care. It's too early to talk about Fraser.
No, it's never too early to talk about Frasier.
Exactly.
I think also one more thing that I will say is that I think every once in a while, I think that, and this especially happens when you're young, you come upon a piece of media that is so formative to you that you basically are chasing it throughout the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And for
It's
me,
true.
unfortunately, that happened to be a very little known year 2000 PS2 JRPG game, Okage Shadow King.
Oh my God.
And if anybody even knows what that could possibly be, that is the thing that drives my entire life. Anything that I have ever made has come from that, basically. And someday I'll just recreate it entirely because everyone will have forgotten,
Yeah.
except for me.
You're bringing it back.
Yeah, I'm gonna get there. That's my whole life. That's my journey as a creative.
Perfect.
So anytime I'm like, I don't know what to do, I'm like, what would Evil King Stan do?
So valid.
You
so
wake
valid.
up from your Let's Play nap, you're like,
Shadow King. Okage Shadow King. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Mad, so I also wanted you, I have the visuals
Oh,
up
yes.
for your Comic-Con stuff, so if you
Yes.
don't mind going in depth for that.
Yeah, so also another thing that is a huge help for me whenever I'm feeling very down on myself, down on my art, everything like nobody cares, nobody's reading anymore, nobody loves me. I will sometimes, I'll go to a convention, I'll set up, I have, my comics, yes, but then also I like to make like stickers and little fun things and just, being around other people, other creatives, my friends, people that I meet, all of you. My friend. I didn't want to be presumptuous.
Redacted.
New friends. But shut up and good. No. You laughing at me? No. I'm being sincere right now.
It's so true. You're
I'm being so vulnerable right now. Anyways, just like the thrill of being around people and getting to talk about my craft and having other people ask me questions about what I'm doing makes me feel like maybe I am doing something right. Maybe what I'm making is resonating with people, and that just sort of refreshes my outlook when it may have become dusty and stale. Just sort of dusting it off at the convention and just talking to people. It's great.
Yeah. I feel like those interactions can be really like recharging.
Yeah.
100%.
Like,
for
I
sure.
definitely love for each of y'all, I don't have a slide for it, but if you want to talk about, are there any experiences with your readers that recharged you, that you remember whenever you had writer's block? Was there something somebody said to you that just made you feel like, okay, I can get through this. I need to remember that like this person said something really nice to me.
So I've been thinking about that recently. Like, I've had readers come up to me with really lovely, heartwarming stories, and those get me. The way I'm setting this up is so dismissive. But the things that really get me are when readers find the crazy humor, they do the memes with my characters, or they will do a TikTok with my characters, and they dunk on my characters. They take a character and they're just like, let's roast him in the group chat, and that does get me going because that's fun, and they're it's nice to see people connecting and bullying my characters. I don't know. That gets me going. I like the idea that people are gonna have fun with these people that they project onto. It's really cool.
That's so nice. Yeah.
I actually had an experience at Emerald City Comic Con here in Seattle this past March. My comic had been on hiatus for almost 4 years at that point, while I was working on the book with Ngozi and a few other things. And I was really struggling with should I just let it go, or should I keep going for that final volume and finish it up, which, let's be clear, it's been going on for 13 years, so it's been a long time. Maybe it should go.
Art takes time.
Art takes a lot of time, but this young lady came up to me and was like, I just want to let you know that I really like She's like, oh no, I'm gonna cry. No. I have this reflexive problem where anytime I say anything emotional, I will start to cry.
Hey,
But-
we don't shame here.
Okay, yeah. But she gave me this little, like, good luck fish.
Oh, my
that,
God.
oh, it's like, this is, you don't have to keep going, but I just wanted to let you know that. Sorry.
That's so
I'll be
sweet.
fine in like 1 minute.
A good luck fish is so,
Yeah.
that's so sweet.
It's very sweet.
She's just trying to support.
And then I was like, I'm gonna do it for you. I'm gonna do it for you.
That's so lovely.
Good luck fish is here to support you.
That's me. He's on my desk now, looking at me.
That's so sweet.
I'm gonna cry.
No,
Thank you.
thank you.
How about you?
Yeah, I mean,
You can cry too if you want.
often I feel like that's the only thing getting me through my writing is that I'm like, people are depending on me. As a trans BIPOC queer person in the public eye, I get a lot of people being very mean to me. So I lock down my social media so that like people can't message me. And I tell people that I don't check my message requests on Instagram, which is mostly a lie. And what I'll do is I'll go through, I'll delete the death threats, and then sometimes there's young readers who will just, reach out to me and say something incredibly kind. And what I actually do is I take screenshots, and I have a folder in my phone that's just the heart emoji, and I save the screenshots for when I'm like really hating myself. And I'm like, well, some people out there like me and like my work, but I am so grateful for the readership that I have. I've had people come up to me or message me and be like, hey, this is like the first time I ever saw someone like me in a book, or like reading this book made me gay. I'm like, you're welcome. Or like I was finally able to like understand my gender more because I read this book. And I've had more than 4 people tell me, young people tell me that they named themselves after a character in my book. And it's that, right? Yeah. It's like,
I would be crying right now.
Yeah. So it can be such a deeply personal and like beautiful thing, and it's really so rewarding and lovely to be like, okay, I'm not in this by myself. It's not just people hurling slurs at me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm actually making a difference, and like there's an impact there, and like I am so devoted to my readers, and like honoring how much my books mean to them. Yeah. That's, oh my God, it's sometimes the only thing getting me through, like getting a job done.
We're here for you. Yeah, I feel like that's another hard struggle, is like representation is already such a hard battle to get in media, but then having another niche of being trans, because I'm also trans, Latina, it's so hard because you haven't had that representation for that group, and it's like, okay, I'm just gonna have to make it myself. Exactly. And it's exhausting, because it's like, you do wish you already had all the media, but at the same time, you're like, all right, gotta do it myself again. Yes, thank you. Okay, and then for all of y'all, have you ever worked on multiple projects at once? Did this relieve the writer's block or only add to it?
Did you add this because of me?
Yes. When you had mentioned it, I was like, okay, yeah.
I think we've all made this mistake.
No, it never helps.
I want people to know the truth.
Currently making this mistake.
Yeah. Oh, here, you start.
I mean, yes, I have. No, it doesn't. It's just more stuff to work on. I mean, you get the benefit of like, this is kind of slowing down over here. Let me see what's happening over there. But it's the illusion of progress. Yeah. You're still just kind of...
Well, especially when you're like working on a project and then you come to a point where you're like, I can't do this anymore. And then you go to the other one and then you get to a point, I can't do this anymore. And then the other one is still at the point where you can't do it anymore. Like all you've done is like procrastinate the situation.
Yeah. I think, yes, I did this. I think I wrote this to you. I was like, this is what happened to me. But, so yeah, my project that I've been working on for 13 years, at the very end of it, or towards the very end of it, before I went on the big 4-year hiatus, I was like, I am sick of this. I don't know what to do. I want to try something new. So I came up with this great idea because the comic that I make is black and white, it's strip format. I'm like, they're going to be normal pages. It's going to be fully colored, even though I have never colored a comic before. It's going to be a different genre, different characters. It's going to be less than 100 pages long, so I'll be able to do it really quickly. And that took me 4 years. And then in the middle of that, I was like, this is too much. I'll sign on to Ngozi's book. And
So that's 1 project, 2 projects, 3 projects.
3 projects, and I struggled with all of that for maybe 4 years into like a huge, terrible spiral that I was like, maybe I hate comics actually.
No.
But it was the, you know, I was it's instead of like, you know, closing the wound, I was just like, like this will help. Yeah. But no, it never helps.
Sometimes you have to re-break the bone. to
Although
start
I
again.
will say, to eliminate all of those things I just said, now they're all basically done, and I'm like, I love these.
Nice.
This is great. And then I just forget about the horrible nightmare that just happened. No.
Childbirth.
No.
Did you want to speak on that before?
I just said the word
And then same
childbirth.
for you.
Like, I like literally won't let myself work on multiple projects at once.
Yeah.
Like, I do not trust myself.
I'm on a strict one only now.
Yeah. I'm like, it needs to be completely out of my hands before I can look at something else.
You kind of have to get to that point, though.
Yeah.
You have to like, Dark Night of the Soul.
Oh yeah, I will drag myself. Like, fine.
You have to
What have I
learn how hard
done?
it is.
If I die, I die. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have to put a big never again sign to
Yes.
read.
Yeah.
Okay, and then did other authors' work inspired you when you were mentally blocked?
Did other work? Come back to me. I'll think about that.
No worries.
Yes and always, I feel
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's not other authors, it's other forms of media. But yeah, I mean, for Cemetery Boys, I didn't even know that I was allowed to write a book about a like trans Latinx queer kid until I read Labyrinth Lost by Zoraida Cordova, which is like the Brooklyn Brujas series. I read that and I was like, well, now wait a second, we're allowed to write about like a Mexican fantasy? Since when? Publishing told me that that wasn't viable. So that was like a big brain moment for me. And then the other part of it that kind of synced up for Cemetery Boys was reading the graphic novel Witch Boy by Molly Ostertag. And I was like, yeah, we can talk about like gendered magic and how that's kind of shenanigans and like explore gender and like fantasy and stuff like that. And that was really exciting for me. So those two were huge for Cemetery Boys specifically. Yeah.
Nice.
I think I have like about a billion examples, but one that floats up to the top immediately is the mangaka Natsume Ono, who is so prolific, just puts out so many like short stories, long stories, all kinds of anthologies and everything, because I mean, she's a really good artist, but like doesn't really let herself get bogged down by like every single panel has to be like, you know, unique and beautiful, and but like has this amazing just like storytelling power of like she knows where to place the characters, like, you know, the expression to draw, and basically just like powers through all of these stories that are like super impactful and super emotional. And so I look at that and I'm like, I always try to remind myself, it's like, you don't have to get bogged down in the details. Like if you reach a certain point in your craft where you feel pretty confident in like your storytelling and drawing abilities, it just becomes, I think, less important to like every single panel needs to be absolutely perfect. Every single sentence needs to be totally poignant and like witty and like on brand, and just more about like just like letting it come out of you basically, and you know, trusting yourself to just sort of move at a quicker pace without you know, sacrificing quality, because when you're sacrificing perfection, you're not sacrificing quality, you're just sacrificing perfection, which isn't possible and isn't viable and isn't comfortable. So
And isn't important.
it isn't important. Yeah.
So now that I thought about that a little bit longer, when I'm experiencing writer's block, I realize that I'm a very different type of writer. I kind of look at writing like doing a crossword puzzle. I like thinking about plot and then asking myself how a scene's going to turn, what's going to happen at the midpoint, breaking things down. I don't know. I guess I like math. So, it's fun because I do like writing for like other people, and I do like writing for the sake of the characters, but sometimes I just like sitting there and figuring things out. That's fun for me. So I often turn to other pieces of media to give me inspiration. And by that, I mean, I like watching other pieces of media so I can break that down and then take the answers. So for Bunt, actually, I watched Ocean's 11 because Bunt, it's about art students trying to basically scam their art school. So I was like, okay, so this is a heist film.
Oh
Let's
my
watch some
God.
heist movies.
Yeah.
And I kind of looked at the plot there.
That's genius.
Yeah, it's just solve for X sometimes. It's not very sexy, but
An emotional salt for X, yeah.
An emotional suffering.
yeah.
All right, and then let's see. So we have 20 minutes, so we have plenty of time. But before we go to the audience questions, are there any questions that you would like to ask each other while you have the mic?
How often do you rewrite, and what does the rewriting process look like to you? Your expression changed. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, this is just going to be really bad advice. I don't rewrite. I don't even reread my drafts when I write them.
I'm the same
I
way.
send them to my editor, and I'm like, this is your problem. But so the only kind of rewriting that I do is my wonderful friend Alex is my writing coach. And how we kind of go through the process together is the closest that I get to rewrites. And I usually write, a chapter? And then I have Alex read it, and Alex is like, this is all the problems. Go fix it. And I'm like, okay, fine. And I'll go back in and fix it. And it's kind of like a long process of that. Alex is my way of getting out of writer's block.
Oh, great.
Being able to bounce ideas around and, I wish
have
my
a
friend-
talented friend is the answer.
My other friend Max, who I don't see, but there they are in the back. Alex and I have been working on the Sunbearer Trials sequel, and they were like reading a scene, and they were just like, I can hear both of your voices with these really bad jokes. And we're like, yeah! Like,
Beautiful.
So it's a lot more of I think a lot of authors are really scared to show their literal first draft, like the ink is still wet. But like that's how I get better, is that I throw it to my friends, to Alex.
So it's
and
collaborative.
It's super collaborative.
great.
Because like that's how I think that storytelling is that it's a very collaborative thing.
Yeah.
And when I get stuck, I take my problems to my friends, but most of the time, 98% of the time, it's Alex, and I'm like, what do I do? What's wrong here? And then being able to just bounce ideas off, and even if it's not an idea that I take, my agent loves to be like, oh, I'll just give you like 8 bad ideas so you can decide on a different good one. So it's for me, it's a lot of the brainstorming part is what breaks me out of the mental block, is being able to talk about it with someone and to come up with a bunch of different ideas and see what's going to be most fun. And oftentimes we disagree, but most of the time Alex is right. So
And maybe a follow-up question. Did you know that writing would be that collaborative as a professional writer?
Because here's the thing, is that I learned how to write by doing online role-playing, which is solely collaborative.
Yeah.
So when I was actually like by myself writing books, I was like, this is kind of lonely and depressing. Does anyone else think that? And so when the pandemic happened, we had a group of friends who were all writers, and we started like having write nights and nights where we can do plot parties and like bounce ideas back and forth. And I don't think my writing has ever been more tight than when I had that community of like feedback and collaboration.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I don't even remember what the question was.
We were asking each other questions.
Oh, we were asking each
Y'all
other.
requested time for that, so I was like, yeah, whatever you want to ask each other. So
I
do
mean,
you feel?
I could ask each of you a bazillion questions. Like Madeline, you're such an interesting artist because I do think a lot of your art is very intuitive. Do you ever? I mean, it's just how I've known you since we met at school.
Yeah, we went to grad school together.
We went to grad school
So you're
together.
wondering what this rivalry is. Yeah.
Do you find yourself redrawing things and getting frustrated? I've never really seen you. Okay, never mind.
No,
Moving
I'm
on.
sorry.
Madeline just shook.
No,
her head.
honestly, and actually, I think that's something had to tell myself only just recently is that it's okay to redraw something that you don't really like.
What?
But
You just
because-
draw?
I just draw.
You just draw?
Well, I mean, you know, I thumbnail and then I pencil and then I ink and everything. This comes from doing about 50 billion regular show at Adventure Time pages with the most insane deadlines you've ever heard of. I would have to do like a 22-page issue like every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And one time I did 6 pages in 24 hours. And so it was just like bad. It was a bad time for me. But
Comic artists get treated
Yeah.
like crud.
and these were my first jobs in the industry. So you sort of have this idea that like, well, I have to deal with this because I need to break in and get my name out there. But it taught me to draw very fast and very, very intuitively, but it also maybe gave me a mental illness. So, which I had to sort of fight my way back out of. And then I was like, you know, because from then on, you're just like, well, I'm not able to do 22 pages in 2 weeks again. So obviously I'm not trying hard enough. And it's like, no, you sort of have to, I had to renegotiate with myself after a long time. Just to say, like, maybe you only do like 2 or 3 pages a week if you can. If you can.
Yeah,
and
the unrealistic expectations of the
yes.
industry, the really high demands.
Forcefully lower your own expectations so that you can pleasantly surprise yourself rather than disappoint yourself constantly when you can't do. Like, actually, yeah, that is a big thing for me for writer's block is feeling like I should be doing 10 pages when physically I can handle maybe 2 or 3 in a good week.
Yeah.
So it's just knowing your limits and being able to set time for yourself that's realistic and helpful and, you know, nice to yourself instead of like constantly being like everyone's running ahead of you, they're getting ahead of you, you have to catch up.
Yeah,
It's
comparing
like-
yourself to a team versus being one person is a constant
Exactly,
reminder.
yeah.
It's like same with every industry process. It does take a team to get it done.
Yeah.
So the editors, the writers, the artists, you know, it's like I
Yeah,
think
and
we
if
always
you're-
have to remind ourselves of that.
Yeah, if you're a single person, that's all you. So you need
Yeah.
to plan time to make social media posts. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
You have to be a marketer, content
Yeah.
creator, all that stuff. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a lot.
Sucks. But I love it.
We got the positive of it, though.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
still good. No
Yeah,
worries.
yeah.
And then I think I wanted to ask y'all one other question is there anything outside of that process that really helps with writer's block? Like, do you like to go hiking? Do you hang out with friends? Like, is there something that really refills your cup every time you deal with that?
Going into movies.
Yeah.
Like, sitting in the movie theater. I feel like I don't watch enough content. I'm just sitting at home playing chess alone. That's so sad. But it's almost like cross training. Like it's a great thing. Like I do a lot of stand up. I love like doing improv. When you are exercising another creative muscle, it like are consuming something else. It
Yeah.
starts to activate other parts of the brain.
Nice.
So yeah.
So my partner is a drag queen, and so we like to make big, fun outfits and everything. That's kind of like our other creative outlet. We're not good at sewing or anything like that, but we make
Art is
some
art.
good things.
It's good.
And, so yeah, so
I've seen the fits. They're fire.
she looks really good. Let's I'll be honest. But yeah, just like coming up with something else, like really putting your mind into like, how are we gonna make this like look good? You know, what are we gonna do afterwards? We have to like take pictures and like tear apart the spare bedroom to like put up the photo backdrop and everything. So
And how that goes, find the nearest wall. that's not
exactly,
that
yeah.
busy.
And then, you know, edit the photos and everything. Or like, yeah, we'll go to the drag shows and, you know, see our friends, see new people perform. Just watching people just like really go for it is like, boy, you can do anything. Anything is possible. This is so much fun. Just like watching other people express themselves in an interesting and unique way.
Yeah. It's nice that you can be creative in a way that doesn't drain you. So it's a way that you can come back to it
Yeah.
and do like the drag or the sewing where you don't have to think, oh, this has to be perfect.
Exactly.
You
It's
can
like,
just create to create.
we're not making a living off of this. So this is purely, a labor of love.
Mine's definitely consuming other forms of media, especially, I think that there's a lot of authors out there, they're like, oh, I don't read in my own genre. I simply cannot be impacted by someone else's writing. And that's not me. Like each of my books, I have like this brain dump doc, and the top is like a list of TV shows, movies, and books that I think are in relation. And if I get stuck, I go and like consume one of those pieces of media in order to like get it back in my brain. I go to the movies, I whip out my phone a lot, my notes app, and take notes, my like Google Doc into that brain dump doc, and I'm like, oh my God, wait, this is such a cool idea. Recently, I'm going to be writing a sci-fi book that's called Gay Titanic in Space. So right now, and
You should keep that title.
we're trying. But the Titanic anniversary, 25th anniversary was recently, so I took my friends to the movies, and I was like, everyone take notes for me. And then, like, that's what we did. Like, we took notes, and then, like, came together and was like, okay, well, this is how I viewed it, and this is how I viewed it.
That's,
And
so,
then, like,
that's such an interesting idea.
it's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
all about gamifying my job, like tricking myself into doing fun stuff that ends up like being helpful for actual writing.
If it gives you that serotonin, that's valid.
Oh yeah.
All right, and then we have 11 minutes for any audience questions. So Phil, is the mic on up here?
There's a mic here. You have to come
Yeah.
up.
So
Mic.
yeah, please feel free to come ahead to the mic if you want to, so you don't have to shout. We'll go in line order. Thank you. All right. Yes. What is your question?
Wait. Can we,
Lean a little bit
not,
closer
we'll
to
lean
it.
closer. If not, we'll project.
Do we have the audience mic on?
I mean,
Thank you.
We can hear
Thank
you.
you.
We'll
I
repeat
think-
the question when you ask it.
There you go.
there we go.
Good.
Yes.
Okay. I do a lot of world building for my stories. I was wondering what you would recommend to, I guess, help with that process.
Okay. So, are you good, or do you have more for that?
So,
So for world building.
what advice do we have for world building?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love world building, I think one of the fun parts for me is almost doing like a photo collage of being like, oh, I want it to look like this. I had to do a lot of world building with the Sunbearer Trials because it's a secondary world fantasy that has like technology and stuff, but a lot of it is inspired by real states and places in Mexico. And so for me, what was really fun to world build was to like think about cool things like in the real world and being like, oh, I can exaggerate this into my story, and doing a lot of visual descriptions and kind of just exploring and figuring out what I want it to look like beforehand, and kind of just like vomiting onto a page, like all those fun ideas, because then I can go back and reference that and make sure that I'm like being consistent. And yeah, because I really like my high fantasy world to be inspired by my culture. So when I do that, I'm like, what is like the coolest, prettiest, most fun things that I can like use as inspiration and to get to like show off in this world. And that's kind of what drives me, is like finding out the most exciting stuff about the world building and then kind of just branching off from there and being like, well, if it's like this, there's so many different states or cities that they travel to in the Sunbearer Trials. Like one of them is a state that's devoted to the goddess of animals, and so the architecture and everything about that world is integrated with animals. And so being able to like explore and like research and being like Googling like animal friendly cities and like what those look like. It's a lot of research figuring out, but mostly like what's the cool stuff that I want to integrate and then kind of branching out from there. Yeah.
I think for me, I'll find something that I become obsessed with. For Sakana, my long-running comic, it was the Tsukiji Fish Market in Tokyo, which unfortunately is no longer around. In 2018, the inner market was demolished, but we're not going to go there in the story. It's going to remain in 2010 forever. So just like learning everything that I could possibly learn about the market, the way that it works and everything, going multiple times, taking lots of pictures, trying to interview people. and then just sort of going from there with that, like the environment is a character, sort of, that mantra. But and then moving forward into like other ideas that I'm going to pursue in the future, I'll just see things that like I just get very, very invested in. Like I watched a whole YouTube video about like weird fashion genres in like the 80s, and I heard about whimsigothic style,
Whimsigothic,
and I was just
I know
like,
that one.
everything that I do from now on is going to look exactly like this. I'm going to go on Pinterest and just type in whimsigoth, and then just like it shows me all these pictures of these like funky looking suns with these silly faces, and I'm like, I'm going to put that on everything. I'm going to make a whole lexicon of like iconography just based on these silly little things that like make up this one weird trend in the 80s. So just like find something that you're really passionate about and just like want to explore, and just even if you're putting that onto a fantasy world sort of thing, like mixing two things unexpectedly, I think is a really easy way to like get a lot of bang for your buck with world building.
And just another quick, I like nonfiction children's books. I have these cross-section books.
Ooh, yeah. Like, yes.
Yeah, so there's these books, and they're called cross-sections, and they have them for spaceships. Like I have a Star Wars one, and they have them for castles and for boats. And what they do is they show you the inner workings of like what a castle is. I was like, I don't know what a castle functions or looks like. And like a spaceship, because I'm writing that Titanic book, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what's inside of a spaceship. And they're so helpful just to like understand the inner workings of things that we have in high fantasy, like, boats and castles and those sorts of
I
things.
took one of those to a bar and just read that at the bar.
Yeah, they're great.
Someone's just like, hey, can I buy you a drink? No, I'm reading my children's book.
Most interesting person at the bar.
Totally.
Our
Yes.
most, yeah.
Great question.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello. What's your question?
Hello, my question is, what do you do when you have a lot of ideas and you don't know which one to choose and to work on and develop?
I would say flip a coin.
Yeah.
Well, think about which of those ideas are shortest, I would say, and start there. Which idea do you think would be good practice for the next idea? Sort of like schedule them in that way, like with whatever, with what talent you have right now, what could you achieve, and how could you build and build through this series of ideas to like get to like this is going to be the big one, but you would have had to have practiced a lot to get there, I guess would be how I would suggest going about it.
That's great advice. I think start with the smallest idea that you can realistically tackle.
Because I know how my brain works, I have to pursue what's most interesting. And out of the most interesting things, what I do is I take whatever is most book-shaped. And by that, I use Jessica Brody's 15-point beat sheet. Google it. It's a free resource online. Also, her book is wonderful. Also, she has one specifically for writing young adult books, if you're into young adult. But it's basically these 15 plot points that every traditional Western story should hit. And I have dozens of ideas, and they each have that little form. And once I can fill in all 15 points of that, I'm like, oh, this could be a book. And that's usually when I take it off and we start turning it into a book. Like whatever actually has the information and the inspiration that I can actually complete a whole story with, but also whatever's like the most shiny carrot to dangle in front of me, because otherwise I'll be like, I don't want to do this.
Definitely try and keep yourself engaged,
Yeah.
however you can.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. And what is your question?
I have two things I want to say. First is to Mad. I just want to say, you're talking about fan interactions. I want to say your books, First Akana, have really impacted my life, and like really, I have like bonded with my friends and met new friends through it, and it's.
I'm gonna cry again.
Yeah, and it's inspired my art style a lot as well.
you.
I take a lot of inspiration from Sakana, and
you so much.
my friend Lorelai even enjoys like doing studies of your art to like learn how you do it, learn the shapes, everything. And
you.
I did have a question.
Yeah.
What do you do when you get like so stuck in burnout that it feels like you can't do anything. You can't see a way out of it.
I definitely have reached that point, which I think what's important to know is that it will take time to get past it. Oh no, I'm gonna do it again. No, it's really spicy. This water is really spicy.
Wait, can I ask really quickly, like, what does, and if it's not too personal, what does burnout kind of feel to you? Is it more of a like I can't do anything, or like I don't feel like I don't have, like, my talent isn't enough?
It's like a weight on you, like, oh, I can't do this. Like it's
kind of
you
like
can't really.
immobilizing almost.
Okay.
Yeah.
As someone who has gone through that recently,
Yes.
unfortunately, the only way to recover from burnout is to rest.
Yeah.
And is to step away from the project for a while. Another piece of general writing advice that I give to up-and-coming writers is that if you've been working on a project for like a year and you're struggling with it, just put it to the side. Work on something else that's a little more shiny, and then usually whatever you start working on will help inform and inspire the other thing. But if it's burnout and you're exhausted, then you need to rest.
Yeah.
That's the only way to recover. And if you keep just trying to push yourself, all you're going to do is like grind yourself further into just a little mushy paste.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I definitely think that what was important for me was to realize that I could not do it all. I could not do everything that I wanted to do at that time. 3 different projects, all like the social media and like marketing and taxes that come with it. And just really forcing myself to first rest for a little while and then be like, I can only pick one thing at a time to move forward with. And it's going to be painful to put that other stuff aside. But if I have to keep going, which I wanted to keep going, even though I was feeling very, down on my work, it's like, what do I need to, what are my obligations if you're under contract for something?
Yeah.
And then if you are able to get through that at least and sort of unburden your obligations a little bit, I think it feels better to move into the next thing, just knowing that, you've taken care of at least something, and like that becomes a small win that begets another small win.
Totally, yeah.
And just right now, I want to work on Robert Chapter 2, but I'm working on Sakana, and I have to just work on Sakana. And I have found that it is so much easier now to make all the social media posts and to keep my schedule consistent and everything. And that's only because I've forced myself to acknowledge my limitations. I can only do a certain amount. I need a life outside of that. I need my weekends. I need to sleep for 8 hours. I'm vegan, unfortunately, so I have to make all my own meals.
All right, so we have time for one more question so we can get through to our last person. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Didn't let you talk.
And what was your
I
question?
didn't have anything.
When can you quit your when can you quit your day job?
When can you quit your day job?
I think that level of comfort is different for everyone. Some people, I know people who are published authors who still have, part-time work. It really depends on like how much money or how much health insurance or just the ease of life that you kind of have become accustomed to. It will go away for a little bit when you become a published author, and you have to kind of build that back up as your career progresses. But it's definitely a transition point. It's not just you wake up one morning, good morning, Baltimore.
No. Yeah, I had to, the only way that I would agree to quit my day job, I emailed my editor and I was like, hey, I'd love to write for you full time, but you need to give me 5 years. I want to be booked out for 5 years. And she's like, say less.
Awesome.
Done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's like, no, this is
Yeah.
such an unstable job and industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's scary.
And I mean, I'm fortunate enough to have a partner who has a full-time job that gives us health care and everything. But if it was just me doing it, I think I would need a part-time job. I can only do everything that I'm able to do because I have that sort of support in my family. But certainly, I've been thinking actually, even just recently, that I would like a W-2 job, as I call it, just to try that out. Like, what would it be like to do a creative 9-to-5, like concept art or something like that, versus what I'm doing now? And if I were to transition back to something like that for a while, would it make me enjoy comics more? Would I be able to come back with new skills and, you know, be more successful, you know, in a few years? So it's always a renegotiation constantly.
And I would say it's different for everyone, and it's not just a linear thing. You might go back to what you were doing for a few months, and then, okay, like, I'll try again. It
Yeah.
might take a few jump starts, but
Totally.
you'll get there.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. So we are now at the end. So thank you again, and thank you to our lovely speakers. So for all of our guests. And just so you know, immediately after this, all of our speakers will be over there across the way by the merch booth. They will be doing the signing at 10:30, so 3 minutes ago. But now, teehee. So there will be books for sale at the merch booth, but Mad's book specifically will be upstairs at the...
Or actually, I have
we
some.
have
You have some.
If anybody wants to buy some of these at the signing booth,
So
I have some.
It will be there. Well, thank you
all
again, everyone.
so much.
Thank you.
Especially for being awake.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.